There's bipartisan agreement that Obamacare isn't working. Democratic Senator Max Baucus, the lead author of Obamacare, said it's a huge train wreck. And Teamsters President James Hoffa said Obamacare will destroy the foundation of the 40-hour work week that is the backbone of the American middle class. And the president is quietly granting Obamacare waivers to big corporations. It's time for Congress to grant American families the same waiver President Obama has given giant corporations. The Constitution gives Congress the power of the purse, and we need Congress to stand up and defund Obamacare now. Please join me so we can get America back on track.
Please call 1-800-314-8505 and tell Congress to defund Obamacare now. That's 1-800-314-8505. 1-800-314-8505. Senate Conservatives Fund is responsible for the content of this message.
Hi, I'm Senator Mike Lee. On October 1st, millions of Americans will have to begin enrolling in Obamacare. Many could lose their doctors and be forced to pay higher premiums and higher taxes. Obamacare is unaffordable and it's unfair. The president has exempted big businesses, but middle-class Americans will still have to comply. Republicans in Congress can stop Obamacare if they simply refuse to fund it. I'm working to lead this effort, but I need your help. Please call the number on your screen and tell Congress, don't fund Obamacare.
Please join Senator Mike Lee in the fight to stop the implementation of Obamacare. Call toll-free 1-800-506-2118 to sign the official voice petition to defund Obamacare. Again, please call 1-800-506-2118 in the next 5 minutes to make your voice heard. This is our best chance to stop Obamacare. That number again, 1-800-506-2118. Senate Conservatives Fund is responsible for the content of this message.
Is the prospect of a government shutdown over any potential fight over spending, is that an option in your mind? Is it a viable alternative?
We have two opportunities.
Alabama Senator Jeff Sessions, who's the top Republican on the Budget Committee, did make it clear in an interview that his party will use the possibility of a debt default to win concessions on spending.
Is government shutdown a viable alternative in your mind?
As I said, we have two opportunities.
I will vote against that.
Even if it leads to a government default or a shutdown?
It's an inconvenience. It would be frustrating to many, many people, and it's not a great thing. And yet at the same time, it's not something that we can rule out. It may be absolutely necessary.
You won't take shutdown off the table if it comes to that?
We have two opportunities to do something important for the country on spending and debt. We ought not to miss this opportunity.
Now there's going to be a government shutdown, just like in 95 and 96. But we're going to win it this time, and I'll be fighting on your side. Thank you.
Conservative activists and lawmakers rally for a shutdown rather than giving in.
I say shut it down. I say shut it down. I say shut it down.
Cut it or shut it! 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 Cut it or
Conservative activists and lawmakers rally for a shutdown.
I say shut it down.
As lawmakers bicker, Americans brace for the real impact of a government shutdown.
We shouldn't be so afraid of a shutdown that we give in.
And 800,000 federal workers could be furloughed with no pay.
If I don't get to come to work on Monday, I don't know how I'm going to pay my bills.
I say shut it down.
A lot of people waiting on those refund checks will have to keep waiting because processing of any type of tax return paperwork and refunds will stop.
There was sort of a cheer amongst Republicans when Speaker Boehner basically said, I'm going to hold the line and we could go to a shutdown.
I say shut it down.
Even if a shutdown lasts just a few days, the consequences could be very far-reaching and also very costly to taxpayers. The last big shutdown in 1996 cost over $1.5 billion to the taxpayer.
Shut it down. We're going to close down the parts of the government we can't stand.
Do you have a second?
I'm all wired up here.
I just did CNN. I just go over and over again. We're willing to compromise. We're willing to negotiate. I don't think they poll tested. We won't negotiate. I think it's awful for them to say that over and over again.
Yeah, I do too. And I just came back from the 2-hour meeting with them, and that was basically the same view privately as it was publicly.
I think if we keep saying we wanted to defund it, we fought for that, but now we're willing to compromise on this, I think they can't. And I think. Well, I know we don't want to be here, but we're going to win this, I think.
Now, with reaction to this and much more, we got a busy night on Hannity, is Texas Senator Ted Cruz. I don't even know where to begin here. You're shaking your head. Go ahead.
Look, this is Harry Reid's shutdown, and it is the perfect example of liberal arrogance. 4 times the House of Representatives has endeavored to compromise, to pass a bill that funds the entire federal government, but at the same time prevents the enormous harms Obamacare is causing to millions of Americans. And 4 times, Harry Reid has said, pound sand, go jump in a lake. He won't negotiate. He won't talk. He told the president, don't talk to Congress. I mean, apparently their view is the president should negotiate with the nation of Iran, but not with Congress. That's just unreasonable. It's ridiculous. And that's what their position is.
Why would we want to help one kid with cancer? Why? Do I even have to begin to answer that? I mean, if you want to talk about cold, callous, heartless, mean-spirited, hateful, all the rhetoric that Harry Reid recklessly throws around against Republicans, it fits him. Your reaction to that?
Well, look, it illustrates what's really going on. As you know, the mainstream media all reads the White House's talking points. So they all repeat, this is the Republican shutdown. And it's why what's happening now is so important. We saw a couple of days ago the Senate unanimously pass a bill funding the men and women of the military, saying we're not going to hold your paychecks hostage the way Harry Reid and President Obama had been threatening to do for weeks. Now, tonight, the House of Representatives has passed a bill funding the national parks, funding the national memorials. Harry Reid suggests he's going to kill that because he wants to keep the Statue of Liberty closed. He wants to keep the World War II memorial closed. There's another bill that the House is expected to pass tonight to fully fund the VA, that we need to stand by our veterans, the commitments we've made. From what Harry Reid has said, he's going to kill that tomorrow.
So wait a minute. So I want to understand this. So all this casual cruelty of Harry Reid, he's going to subordinate literally compassion and decency for partisanship. He won't keep the parks open. He won't allow the vets to go to World War II. He's not going to fund the NIH, even if it's going to help one kid with cancer. I mean, that's pretty sick. What a twisted old. Sorry,
Sean. There are 2 things going on. One, Harry Reid and President Obama believe this shutdown benefits them politically, so they don't want it to end. They like this shutdown. But number 2, they don't want to open the VA because Harry Reid wants to hold veterans hostage in order to force Obamacare on everyone. And let's be clear, the bill that the House is going to vote out tonight doesn't even mention Obamacare. It simply says we should continue to fund the VA because whatever happens in a shutdown, our veterans should not be held hostage. And apparently Harry Reid's standard is he thinks veterans don't deserve the same treatment that men and women of the active military do. That's not right. We need to honor those commitments, and we need to put the partisan politics of Barack Obama and Harry Reid behind us. And, just 2 days ago, President Obama gave a list of all of the negative things that would happen in a shutdown, that he wouldn't pay the Border Patrol, that he would shut down NASA, that he'd shut down the national parks, and that he'd shut down much of the VA. What the House is doing is saying, Mr. President, we have heard your priorities. We're acting in a bipartisan manner to fund the priorities you laid out, Mr. President, in a national speech. And Harry Reid saying he's going to kill him because he wants everything shut down.
All right. The first was defund. All right. Then they said, let's delay it. Then they said, well, let's just get rid of special exemptions. We'll treat everybody in the country equally. That means big business that they gave an exemption to and individuals. And then they said, all right, let's just talk about it. Now we find out the Obama administration knew about the World War II veterans' request. They rejected it, and they sent more guards to the World War II memorial today than they did to Benghazi on September the 11th, 2012.
Well, Sean, I don't think anyone is surprised, although I think we're saddened every day by the political gamesmanship of this administration. This is a president who is, who during sequester furloughed air traffic controllers because he figured if people's flights were delayed, it would inflict the maximum
pain. He shut the White House down to children. Michelle Obama's whining that she can't tweet. Twitter has nothing to do with the White House or the budget. Sorry, you're not going to hear from me, but the government shutdown is not going to allow me. She doesn't do her own tweeting. Sorry, you may have to punch a few buttons there, First Lady.
And yet, look, what's so valuable about this is the media will continue to report Republicans are shutting things down. It becomes very hard for them to report that when you have the House saying, let's open the VA, you have every Senate Republican saying, let's open the VA, and you have Harry Reid saying no, keep the VA defunded. It becomes transparently clear who it is that's shutting down the VA, who it is that's shutting down the Statue of Liberty, who it is that is standing in the way of funding our vital priorities.
How do they get away with this? We're not going to talk to you. Our way or the highway. That's pretty much what it is. And if it means kids with cancer suffer, it means World War II vets suffer, they don't care. Is this the party of compassion and love and decency? Because they claim they have a monopoly on those things.
They live in the D.C. bubble where it's all about brute political power. Listen, what this fight is about fundamentally, Sean, is making D.C. listen to the people. We wouldn't be here if over 2 million people hadn't gone to don'tfundit.com, signed a national petition, and forced our elected officials to listen to us. And you look at the millions of Americans who are losing their jobs, who are being forced into part-time work, who are facing skyrocketing health insurance premiums, and who are at risk of losing their health care because of Obamacare. And what Harry Reid and President Obama are saying is, we don't care about you. We're going to grant exemptions for the ruling class, for big business and members of Congress, but not for hardworking American families. That's wrong, and that's what's going on here.
What a sick, twisted old man to say, why would we want to do that and help a kid with cancer? Pretty heartless, I got to tell you. Pretty sick. Good to see you, Senator.
I think it reflects cynical and unfortunately partisan priorities.
Partisanship trumps everything in the world of Reid and Obama. Sad. All right, thank you so much for being with us. Coming up next.
We are now 3 days into a completely unnecessary, completely avoidable Republican shutdown. And there is more talk than ever about our inability of our leaders to find common ground on central economic and fiscal issues of our time. We all know how we got here. For years now, we've heard a small minority in this country rail against government. When I hear the latest tirades from some of the extremists in the House, I am struck by how vague these complaints are. The anarchy gang is quick to malign government. But when was the last time anyone called for regulators to go easier on companies that put lead in children's toys? Or for food inspectors to stop checking whether the meat in our grocery stores is crawling with deadly bacteria? Or for the FDA to ignore whether morning sickness drugs will cause horrible deformities in little babies? We never hear that. Not from political leaders in Washington and not from the American people. In fact, whenever the anarchy gang makes headway in their efforts to damage our government, the opposite happens. After the sequester kicked in, Republicans immediately turned around and called on us to protect funding for our national defense and keep the air traffic controllers on the job. And now that the House Republicans have shut down the government, holding the country hostage because of some imaginary health care boogeyman, Republicans almost immediately turned around and called on us to start reopening parts of our government. Why do they do this? Because the boogeyman government is like the boogeyman under the bed. It's not real. It doesn't exist. What is real, what does exist, are all those specific, important things that we as Americans have chosen to do together through our government. In our democracy, government is not some make-believe thing that has an independent will of its own. In our democracy, government is just how we describe the things that we, the people, have already decided to do together. The Food and Drug Administration makes sure that the white pills that we take are antibiotics and not baking soda. The National Highway and Traffic Safety Administration oversees crash tests to make sure that all new cars have effective brakes. The Consumer Product Safety Commission makes sure that babies' car seats don't collapse in a crash and that toasters don't explode. We know that government doesn't always work. We know that no institution is infallible. People make mistakes, ideas fail, and sometimes we get things wrong. But our response isn't to give up. Our response isn't to sit back and say, I told you so. We're not a nation of quitters. Our response, the American response, is to fix it, to make government work better. Our democracy is an experiment, and it's always evolving. We constantly redesign and reimagine and improve on what we do together. But time and time again throughout our history, we have reaffirmed the simple truth that government matters. So, Mr. President, to those who have forced us to the brink, to those who rail against a make-believe government, to those who seem to rejoice in anarchy, to those who have salivated the chance to shut down our government because their extremist views have left them disconnected from the experiences of the American people, it is time to hear a simple message. You can do your best to make government look like it doesn't work when you stop it from working. You can do your best to make government look paralyzed when you paralyze it. You can do your best to make government look incompetent through your incompetence and ineffective through your ineffectiveness. But sooner or later, the government will reopen because this is a democracy, and this democracy has already rejected your views. We have already chosen to do these things together because we all know that we are stronger when we come together. And when this government reopens, when our markets are safe again, when our scientists can return to their research, when our small businesses can borrow, when our veterans can be respected for their service, when our flu shots resume and our Head Start programs get back to teaching our kids, we will have rejected your views once again. We are not a country of anarchists. We are not a country of pessimists and ideologues whose motto is, I got mine, the rest of you are on your own. We are not a country that tolerates dangerous drugs, unsafe meat, dirty air, or toxic mortgages. We are not that nation. We have never been that nation, and we will never be that nation. Today, a political minority in the House that condemns government and begged for this shutdown has had its day. But like all the reckless and extremist factions that have come before it, their day will pass, and our democracy will return to the important work that we have already chosen to do together. Thank you.